And we're on. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another of the Able Marketing Facebook Live, streamed live to the Able Marketing YouTube channel, facebook.com/Able Marketing VC. And I'm pleased to have join me a guest that I've followed for a number of years through TED Talks, through the Vancouver Business Network, and through Get Inspired Talks, having viewed a number of his talks, both pre and post-pandemic, streaming live. And that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on here. But as he's just told me off the air, one of his latest, and he said it's not really a business venture, but latest hobbies is legally marrying people as a wedding officiant. So, Roger, why don't we kick it off by you talking a little bit about your latest hobby and passion?
I retired. I actually think of it as repurposed myself about 10 plus years ago. Then repeated the repurposing with the arrival of COVID and repeated it again as recently as a month or so ago. And the latest iteration is a result of something entrepreneurs who have been entrepreneurs for many decades don't realize until it confronts us. We're a different breed of person. 1 in 10 of us Canadians is a natural born entrepreneur. 90% are much more comfortable as salaried employees. And as a natural born entrepreneur, with the passage of years, we get to tie our self-esteem, self-respect with our ability to generate value, which takes the form of cash flow. And I found myself living the life of my dreams as a cruise ship guest lecturer, but there was something gnawing at me because as a cruise ship guest lecturer, I was taking $100,000 a year at retail of cruises, but something was still missing. And the thing that was missing just struck me like a thunderbolt late in 2024. And that was, I was doing my guest lecturing on cruise ships as a volunteer. I wasn't generating any cash flow, any income, even though I was creating huge value for the passengers of the cruise ships that I spoke on. And so I cast about for something else to do, something extra to do, in addition to speaking on cruise ships, that would give me a little bit of money, that would allow me to use my natural born talents, and that would be very enjoyable to do and not an awful lot of hard work. And I stumbled on the opportunity to become a wedding officiant. That means legally marrying people in British Columbia. And so I've gone through the training, and now I'm poised to become a licensed wedding officiant, which means I can legally marry people. So if you want to think of that as a business, do so, but I more think of it as a hobby that generates pocket money. And so now I put on my entrepreneur's hat and say, well, there's competition out there. There are other wedding officiants, lots of them. Right. And how am I going to be different? So I filter my hobby through the lens of what's my competitive advantage. How am I going to create a product which is a wedding ceremony that people can really get behind, they really want. And so my style of wedding officiancy, OFFICIANCY, is that I am determined to deliver wedding ceremonies that are highly respectful, but lively, and anything but solemn, and highly interactive. That's my brand of wedding. So that's the track I'm on. I don't want to make a ton of money. I don't want to officiate 4 weddings a weekend. One a week will be absolutely fine for me. And then do my 2 months of cruising over the course of a year. And I think that will be a pretty darn beautiful retirement with enough of everything and not too much of anything. So that's the track that I'm on at this point in my life now, Ben.
That's a fascinating talk, and that's a great way to intro, because you talked about something that's interesting. At least to me, about 90% of people are more comfortable being a salaried employee than being an entrepreneur. And you said that 1 in 10 were born entrepreneurs. So you're obviously, at least from the experiences I've had with you attending your talks and talking to you and then hearing your first answer, that's who you are and what you do and maybe where you derive pleasure from. But one thing I did research, and I know you said that this whole idea of the wedding officiant and the cruise thing is not a relatively new thing, but you are doing these weddings. But one of the things that I found is how you built these 12 diverse businesses over a 44-year career. And I know you said that it wasn't as important as talking about what you're doing now, but when you made the comment about 1 in 10 people are born entrepreneurs, how did that come about for you then, if you built 12 diverse businesses like that over 44 years?
Well, it all started in the 1970s. After I graduated from university in Ireland, I went to work in England for Ford Motor Company. The whole notion of entrepreneur was the furthest thing from my mind. It was just what you do when you graduate from university in Ireland. You go to work for a big company in England.
Of course.
So I went to work for Ford Motor Company. And I really didn't like the whole big company, the man, work for a boss, out of control. Nothing was further from my mind than becoming an entrepreneur. Then I emigrated to Canada and became a sales rep for Xerox, another big company.
Right.
And bumped into the same disquieting feeling of working for a boss and learning on the hard anvil of experience what a business decision meant. So my first business was really a moonlighting business. I opened a little restaurant on Denman Street in the West End of Vancouver. The restaurant was called Figaro's.
Right.
And that was really what I would call my first business venture, to be followed by many others. And I now cannot contemplate working for the man, being somebody's employee. I also, as the decades trickled by, began to realize the difference in mindset between an entrepreneur and an employee. I also grew the belief that entrepreneurs are born. They're generally not made. I'm sure there are some rare exceptions. And the kind of person who is a natural born employee, every aspect filters through their mind, their lifestyle. If they don't take risks in business, they don't take risks in life. So power to people who are natural born employees. But let's not pretend that you're an entrepreneur. If you do try and do this unnatural thing of becoming an entrepreneur, it will be quite uncomfortable for you. You'll feel out of water. So I think it's really important at school that kids learn, what are you? are you an entrepreneur or are you an employee? Because if you choose the wrong path, the results will not lead to an optimum quality of life.
Right. Right. And so you opened the Figaro's restaurant, which I didn't know about, and that led to other sort of entrepreneurial ideas within like the restaurant industry, or sort of food, or how did that work? Because you
Oh,
were you
that was a
juggling working at
that was the
Xerox and doing the
yeah
restaurant, or did you?
yeah that was I was moonlighting, and that turned out to be a absolute disaster,
Right.
causing me to have huge respect for restaurateurs.
Right.
It looks easy, doesn't it? But it's anything but easy.
Yeah.
Uh, and I imagine over the years has become more and more difficult. Living where I live in the West End, I walk Denman Street often, and I observe these independent restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
generally opened by new Canadians who really have no idea how tough it's going to be to make a buck, to stay in business. And my heart sinks every time I see them open and then see a for lease sign on their shop a few short months later. It's a really, really tough business. So anyway, after I was working for Xerox while I was running Figaro's,
Wow.
and 1979 was when I just abandoned being an employee and my second venture was a financial planning firm called Kilran Financial Planning. And that was when the financial planning industry, personal financial planning, was in its infancy in Vancouver. Now anybody is a personal financial planner, from a bank teller to a really well qualified individual. But back then it was the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
And my timing couldn't have been more terrible. 1982 was a very tough year in the
Right.
economy of Canada. You may recall the 20, 21, 22% interest rates that were prevailing at that time, leading to this downward spiral of the real estate market, huge unemployment, just a very bad situation. Then I moved from the financial planning industry to a mortgage company. Then from a mortgage, in other words, the ensuing 7, 8, 9, 10 businesses were all different, and were all an expression of my interests at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had the luxury of not having several mouths to feed, so I could indulge my interest by opening a business that reflected that interest.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So let's keep moving, because when we talked a little bit off the air, you said something about reaching out to you for certain types of opportunities. And you said that you'd be happy to have small amounts of time if people wanted to pick your brain. But if you really wanted to get value from a talk like this, and you wanted people watching to get value from a talk like this, I guess it's one way to say who's your ideal client. But you want people to reach out to you about opportunities to officiate weddings. That's not just people who are the couple participating in the wedding, but people who are parents. Um, and you also talked a little bit about maybe having people reach out to you to do some kind of a volunteer opportunity related to something like that on a cruise ship, but that maybe a bit of compensation would come your way as well.
Well, I'm living what most retirees would consider a dream come true lifestyle. I spend 2 months of the year cruising on high-end cruise lines to different parts of the world, and then the other 10 months living locally,
Mm-hmm.
taking in Vancouver's summer. Uh, and performing weddings. And if anyone wants to talk to me about how they can position themselves to live their own ideal retirement, I'm more than happy to have a chit chat.
Right.
Uh, I don't really want to get paid.
Right.
If they want to hear my story, I'm quite happy to share it. I don't want to take on clients. I'm just more happy to listen to their situation and offer them some insights based upon my own interests.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because you talked about the entrepreneurship route. So, and the research I did said it said 12 businesses. So we've talked about working at Xerox, the restaurant, the financial planning. What did you do after the financial planning? Because I guess what I'm wondering is, how did you arrive at the TED Talks you started doing 10 years ago or back in 2013, and the Vancouver Business Network, and then also Get Inspired Talks? Because I really like the Get Inspired Talks format. And it sounds very much like the work you're trying to do with the volunteering on cruise ships and the sort of the wedding efficient piece, right? Is that you're really focused on inspiring people and giving back and helping people rather than just solely worried about, I need to make money from business.
Well, the currency of my life is impact.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make as much impact as I can over the next 46 years. You see, I'm resolved to live to 120 in really good health.
Nice.
So I'm interested in a whole subject called biohacking,
Right.
which is using my biology to enjoy a long and healthy lifespan. I don't consider working for Xerox as an entrepreneurial venture. That was an employee venture, and it was my last such employee venture. After financial planning, there was running a mortgage company. After the mortgage company was, what was it? I started a company building homes, high-end homes. It was called Elegant Properties Ltd. And from there moved into another company that was engaged in the business of plastic extrusions. Mm-hmm. And from there, I can't actually remember the sequence.
Right.
About every 3 or 4 years, I would become interested in a new venture, start that. I won't pretend that every one of the ventures was a wild success. The results were good, bad, and ugly. But overall, they were good enough to set myself up with some foresight for a financially stable retirement, which is the situation that I consider myself in right now. I don't worry about day-to-day money.
Right.
One of the big decisions, of course, that I got lucky enough to make was to buy a home, buy some real estate that I could live in back 20-ish years ago. That's a massive issue right now with our real estate values. So through a series of fortunate accidents, like buying a home, that was not really a financial decision. That was more a lifestyle decision. I now find myself in the situation that I'm in, and if I can help anybody else, at least ask the questions that they need to answer for themselves, I'm happy to do so. I'm not sure if that answered your question, Ben. Can't actually remember your question.
No, it was just designed to have sort of a 20-minute Facebook Live kind of conversation with you like this. But it's been very useful and valuable, and I thank you for the time. And take time to wrap it up there. And I have some notes here when I share this on social media and promote the talk, how people can reach out to you. And I've done a few things in the chat in this call, shared your YouTube channel for Get Inspired Talks, so people can see that, and also shared your LinkedIn profile so people can see that. and understand sort of where you're coming from. That's what I used for my research. But obviously, with
Okay.
the new stuff you've told me, you're charting a different direction in retirement. And I just found the entrepreneur piece interesting because of the
Good.
number of things that you tried that didn't work out, or maybe they did work out, but I guess it's all somebody's perception of, you know, failure and failing, and how do you come to terms with that?
I over the course of all those businesses, I really developed a belief, two beliefs. One, that entrepreneurs are born, and entrepreneurs and employees are just different. And the earlier an individual can recognize what they are, the less frustration they're going to have in their lives.
Hmm.
For example, the whole notion of living a balanced life is not applicable to an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur does not live a balanced life. Their business is all consuming. Let's recognize that, as opposed to fighting with it. And the second realization was that there is a formula to business success. All we have to do is look at franchises and ask ourselves, how come franchises are 95% successful while independent businesses are 95% failures? It's because the franchise applies a system with discipline. The entrepreneur, particularly first-time entrepreneur, have said no to the man, no to guidance,
Right.
in order to gain freedom.
Right.
Well, we as entrepreneurs exercise that freedom and do so in a way that produces a 95% business failure rate. So let's recognize that there is huge value to be had from applying a disciplined step-by-step formula that produces a 95% success rate. And if we know that, we can guide our little business with that discipline in order to be part of the 95% success rate.
Right.
The reference you made to VBN, Vancouver Business Network, I took over VBN from my friend Iman Agai. Iman
That's right.
started VBN, Vancouver Business Network, in 2010, and then got busy with his other activities while I was entering this thing called retirement. So between us, I took it over. Then a few years later came COVID, and then we
Right.
amalgamated different branches of VBN. I think there were about 60 of them throughout North America, and it became an 80,000 person network.
Right.
But there was no money made. It was really a give back project. As I mentioned, my currency is impact.
Right.
Currently, I want to give impact to passengers on cruise ships. I want to give impact to couples getting married. I want to give impact to speakers via the Vancouver Entrepreneurs Toastmasters Club. Every day I measure impact. That's my metric for success. Back to you, Ben.
Thanks, Roger. That's great. I appreciate all your time and all your insights here. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to wrap it up here, and we'll talk to everyone soon.